has been able to impact people. We've all seen Law and Order Special Victims Unit, and if you haven't, it's the chronicles of the new NYPD and how they decide to fight crime and the attorneys that decide how to settle the cases. Currently, Robert Solbach, born and raised in Wichita, Kansas, is going through the legal system right now and dealing with something he probably shouldn't have had to. But Robert's seen the flaws that have plagued the justice system, and he's deciding that it's important to address them by saying probable cause in a fair trial. Now, how does that pertain to us? One case. Say if we do something wrong and it might be something we don't commit. We've been taught since the 3rd grade that it's important to be innocent until proven guilty. But is that truly the case? Robert today will discuss how it's important for us to see those and to understand why we need to change the justice system. Robert, come speak to us.
Imagine sitting quietly in a courtroom, listening to a judge tell you you're about to be sent to trial on 2 felony charges. Now, this is actually part of my reality. I'm still currently going through this. This also happened without any personal defense. There's actually nothing you can do within a probable cause hearing to defend yourself. In a system where you have a right to a fair trial, probable cause rulings need to change to properly reflect that in our justice system. I've been obviously subject to this, and I understand more about it now from dealing with it personally, along with have had family members go through it. So over the next few minutes, I'll be covering what's wrong with these hearings and how we can correct that in order to improve their function. First, I will address how probable cause has been used inappropriately. Second, I will propose changes that will make rulings more just. And lastly, I will show how this will improve the justice system. Firstly, in a system with a right to fair trial, probable cause hearings simply aren't. In these, the prosecutor is actually the only one who's going to be presenting a case. The burden of proof, which is where you determine what parties are responsible for presenting evidence and building a case, it's only left to the prosecutor, and you have only a rebuttal for the defense. The defendant doesn't actually, like I said, have the ability to prove themselves innocent. This is coming from Legal Beagle, which is a source that I've used to do a little bit more research on how these cases are run prior to going to trial myself. The guidelines for these actually rule in favor of the prosecution. Judges apply presumption to establish prima facie cases, a degree of likelihood sufficient to decide the issue until rebutted. This is from Brasigal, who's a writer for the Mississippi Law Journal. He wrote a whole article based around the probable cause and essentially how it's a gamble going into it and having that hearing at all. Probable, as it's defined by Merriam-Webster Dictionary, is actually supported by evidence strong enough to establish presumption, but not proof. So without providing any proof, you're running off purely presumption, which is not factual. So therefore, what are we actually basing this on? Second, these hearings can be run in a more balanced manner. By removing the ability to use certain evidence that would not actually go into trial, we can make these cases a lot fairer. So in a probable cause hearing, you can actually use evidence and testimonies that would be considered illegal or be thrown out once you actually reach trial. But since it is a hearing and not your trial, you can bring that in. So we can lead you into your criminal case and your criminal trial without actually having any real grounds to do so. We can be using evidence that doesn't truly exist in the trial standard, by trial standards. We can also do this by using the beyond a reasonable doubt standard. This is another standard that can actually be used within criminal trials but it's not typically utilized within probable cause hearings. Obviously, probable cause hearings are also known as preliminary hearings or evidentiary hearings. So it's not simply probable cause. We can actually change that name back to preliminary hearing and go with a standard that is going to be held a little higher. You actually have to have a solid form of proof in order to continue your trial. Actually giving both sides the ability to substantiate their cases would be huge to these trials. Any evidence presented by the defense basically only aids the prosecution because you actually can't prove yourself innocent at this point. Balancing the burden of proof, which burden of proof simply means that it's a determinant of who has to prove, yes, this is valid, or no, it's not. Who's presenting a case and who has to prove it. This is only in these cases on the prosecutor, not on the defense. So by balancing this, we're going to actually have both sides forced to build a case and build evidence to defend the position before we even go to trial. Finally, I'll tell you how this is going to actually help create a fairer justice system. We'll actually have a lower rate of wrongful imprisonment. What I mean by this is we're going to be able to have cases stopped by the beyond a reasonable doubt standard so that we are not continuing to push people into a criminal path that doesn't really necessarily exist for them. Cases of inflated charges will also be dropped because they will have to substantiate evidence for those inflated charges, rather than having a case where one charge might be valid, that'll have to be readjusted and readdressed. There will also be more just trials. So both having the burden of proof, the defense case can actually be dismissed pre-trial. So rather than this long drawn out process, this is actually going to take me over probably a year and 8 months to finally be settled with this. It would actually end a lot shorter depending on how everything moves out. This would also follow your constitutional right to a fair trial by having a balance on both sides. So now that I've gone kind of over where the errors are and how we can fix these, we saw this in where the issues are with having it very one-sided and err to the side of your prosecution. Second, ways to improve it by balancing out those standards and removing unjust evidence. And then finally, how improvement would have a positive effect on our justice system. So please take action by calling and emailing your state and national judges to make change and to preserve your right to a fair trial.